Hello, founders. If you're trying to raise pre seed or seed funding and you're at the early stage, there's so much that you have to think of. When I talk to these founders, especially first time founders, they get so overwhelmed and they don't think about all the factors that come into place when you're trying to raise that early stage capital. And I get it. I've been there, I've done that. And as I've raised over $100 million from my startups, other people's startups, as well as startup funds, and I've watched thousands of other founders try and raise, I've advised founders directly who have raised six-figure checks, seven-figure checks. What I've done is I've compiled it all together into one tool. You might recognize this based on what it looks like, and that is the business model canvas or the lean startup canvas, which is a derivative of the business model canvas. Well, I was looking at it and I said, why don't I create a canvas to help founders with early stage funding? And this is the tool right here. I'm going to walk you through it, and I think you're really going to like it. I believe that if you do this right and you can click all these boxes and check it off, your first 100K raise in an early stage round is going to be a lot simpler. It's still going to be hard to do because building a startup is really, really tough. But if you've got a good startup, you've got a good idea, raising that initial check, that pre-seed round is going to be a lot easier if you use this tool. Before I continue, my name is Ed Kang. I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I use YouTube and channels like this and content like this to help founders, especially early stage founders, try and avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made when I've been raising pre-seed and seed funding and the other rounds. I have made so many mistakes, and I'm going to try and help you avoid those. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes, but I'm going to try to reduce the impact, the damage, the heartache, the painfulness of making those mistakes and what you go through. That's what I'm here to do. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. I've worked with a team that has raised over $750 million for startups. We've been around. We see so many founders, hundreds of founders every single month, and thousands over the years through our program. We've seen what works and what doesn't work, and that's where I'm coming from in this video. If you like this type of stuff, please do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. If you haven't thought about it, join us at startups.com. If you are part of startups.com, thank you so much for your support. I'm hoping this tool is very helpful for all of you. Let's jump into the tool. Here we have the Startup Early Stage Funding Canvas. And what you're going to do is you're going to work from the outsides and work inwards. And this is going to help you create that pitch deck, but also get that traction that you're looking for. Let's start from the beginning. First and foremost, like I said, you're going to work outside in, but you need to be thinking about your investor. And what's very important about that is that not all investors are equal. We're going to be looking for something in the future called founder investor fit. And that means you're going to be thinking about which investor fits me and what stage. Investors that invest in early stage startups are a lot different, such as angels and early stage rounds like micro VCs are a lot different than VCs and your institutional funding sources. So you want to keep that in mind and understand what type of investor you're going to be trying to reach. The next is, at the end of the day, you need to be presenting metrics. Be prepared to show investors key metrics. It's all about that data. It's all about showing, here's my traction week over week. Here are my unit economics. Here's my customer acquisition costs. If you're not thinking about these things, you will never be able to raise money. And that's been one of my secrets is I show the math, I show the data to investors. So first, what you're going to do is you're going to work on your product unique value proposition. What is your unique value proposition? And you're going to be looking for 4 key things. Is it clear, concise, compelling, and contrary? That's important. If you cannot summarize your unique value proposition, and if it doesn't stand out in the way that it's clear, concise, compelling to the user, as well as contrarian to the competition, you are not going to get very far. And I'm going to take for granted you're using all the other tools like Lean Startup, and you're using the Business Model Canvas or the Lean Startup Canvas to come up with your unique value proposition, and you're going out there and you have validated it. What does validation mean? That you have legitimately gone out and talked to other humans, not figured out what's in my mind and say, this is the most amazing idea, that you have validated it from a customer standpoint, preferably with customers that you don't know. Once you have your unique value proposition nailed down, then you are going to work on your user ICP. ICP typically stands for Ideal Customer Profile. However, I'm going to put a little bit of twist on it. Is it your ideal customer profile or your initial customer profile? You may think that your ideal customer profile is a certain type of individual, your demographics, psychographics, behaviors, even firmographics if you're in B2B. I'm going to let you go out and research what it takes to build an ICP, but there might be an individual customer profile, such as an innovator or an early adopter, if you're checking out the innovation adoption curve. Let me give you an example. When I was trying to launch an edtech in China, the first ideal customer profile that we were thinking about are HR executives. And we thought HR executives are going to want to come to our EdTech platform because it's going to allow them to go and expand their career, move up the corporate chain. But what we realized, we needed to tackle an initial customer profile, which was the executive already working in the industry. It was the executive, and we wanted to get those initial customers on board so we could present them to the ideal customers, and that worked. We did our first round and it started gaining momentum and it eventually worked towards our ideal customer profile. I'm not saying this is always the case, but if you break down the ideal customer profile, you may start to go, okay, what is another segment, even a subsegment of this, which is the initial customer profile that we're going to go after first. Now that you've worked the two sides of this tool, this canvas, then you are going to get one user to love your product. And you might be thinking, Ed, just one user? Well, this is where lean methodology comes into place. I don't want you to get overwhelmed by trying to reach thousands of customers. I want you to find one customer to love your product. You might have already done this. You might already have data, but remember, we're starting from scratch. If you can go and get one customer to love your product, not just kind of like your product, because one customer loving your product is worth way more than 10 customers that kind of kicked your product around and said, all right, it's kind of okay. You want one person to absolutely love it. Once you get that one user to love your product, you're going to have a foundation that you can start to talk to them and start to develop more understanding, insight, so you can iterate your product. Your unique value proposition might change at this moment in time. It might be refined, be a lot more clear, a lot more concise, because now you understand your customer, because you've got that one raving fan who eventually is going to do the next step. You want to figure out how to get them to pay $1. And again, you might be charging more. This is only figurative. But I literally go out and say, can I get $1 out of somebody? Especially if my product is only half baked. I'm at an MVP stage. Might not even exist as something that you can click. Might be a landing page. I'm going to see if I can get them to pay me $1. That might be reserving. That might be saying, okay, put me on the early list, and I'm going to go up to the top of the list by giving $1. There might be crowdfunding involved. You might be charging a lot more. You might be charging $100 to get on the waiting list, or you might actually have the product. But the fact of the matter is, you are going to try and make $1. You're going to try and make money from that one user, because there's never a better time to get feedback than after you tell the user the price. And this feedback loop goes back, and they may say, you know what, I'm not even going to give you $1. I like it, but it's not worth $1 for me, or $100 or $1,000. And now you're going to go back to your product unique value proposition, because you've invalidated something in there and it's not as clear, not as concise, maybe not as compelling as far as pricing is concerned, or it's not as contrarian, meaning they say, okay, I could go to your competitor and pay the exact same amount and get a better product. It's newer, I trust it more, it's already established. That's the feedback that you want. I'm going all the way back. Your customers are going to tell you whether they want to go to a competitor or not, and then you can begin to do your research and figure out, maybe I need to come up with a different compelling and contrarian offer to get that proverbial $1. Now we're going to go to the other side of the canvas here, and you are going to create one user channel. What is a user channel? It is a source of users and customers where you're going to use that channel to get your other customers. And I'm not talking about the people who love you, your mom, your dad, your rich aunt or uncle. They're going to help later on, trust me. But I'm talking about a channel where you go out, might be a Facebook group, might be publishing on a certain site, might be a offline group, like a community group, might be a book club. I don't know what it is, but you're going to find that one channel. Could be your LinkedIn. You're going to develop that one channel, and you're going to really nail that down, because you can't just rely on going and talking to people who love you and will start to use your product alone. Investors are going to see that a mile away. If you got one customer and that customer is giving you 80% of your revenue, and that happens to be the customer that you worked for, it was your former boss, investors aren't going to trust you, because they're going to say, how do I know that you can go out and sell to other people? That's the reason you want to pick one channel. If you want to know how to research those channels, you're looking for the book Traction by Weinberg and Mayers. They're the founders of DuckDuckGo. In their book, they've got 19 evergreen channels, and you want to experiment with them. Go read that book and test out the channels and figure out what channel is going to start working for you. And you only need one to start. If you can show investors that you have locked down and you have mastered one channel, trust me, that's really good than throwing out and testing like 10 or 20 different things and saying, here's our go-to-market strategy. We're going to do Facebook ads. We're going to go viral. We're going to do TikToks. We're going to do B2B sales. We're going to do articles and blogs and coupons. The investor's not interested in that. If you can show the metrics of one channel and say, we can milk this channel and we're looking at other channels, that's going to work a lot better for you when you're raising that early stage funding. After that one channel, you are going to get them to tell one other user. So you're going to get one customer who loves you, pays you $1 from one channel, and you're going to get that one customer to tell another customer. How do you do that? I don't know. You might have to engineer your product in a specific way. You might have to improve your product because it's not referral worthy, or you can build in referral incentives such as affiliate commissions. I don't care what it is, but you need to increase the virality by just a little bit every single increment until it goes to a snowball effect. Why? Because investors aren't interested in you constantly paying for your customers. You're just going to create marketing debt for you. And it's going to be a hole. And if you don't have a good ROAS or you don't have a return on your customer acquisition costs, well, that's not going to work for investors because they're going to be thinking, you're just going to blow all my money. You're going to spend 50 cents on every dollar I invest in Google ads, and that's not going to help. If you can figure out how to get one channel and they're referring other people because they love their product, then what will happen is an investor will say, well, if I give you money for advertising to pay for these activities, I'm pouring gasoline on the fire. This works with CPG companies as well. Investors tell me all the time, Ed, we need to see some sort of virality in the product. The packaging, the product has to be so unique that people want to Instagram it or share it on social media. And that way, other people look at it and go, what is that? And that's the virality that they're looking for. It works with every product. I don't know what it is, even B2B. Are you getting referrals from your best clients? That one customer that really loves you, did they love you enough to refer other people? That's what you're going to be working on. Now we got both sides of this canvas working and you're starting to squeeze into the middle, which is really great. Then you're going to go right into your pitch deck. You're going to start building your pitch deck, and you may not be ready to raise funds, but let me explain something to you. I raise funds from day one. As soon as I validate my product, as soon as I understand, hey, I've got a little bit of momentum, I start working on my pitch deck. Here's why. A pitch deck isn't something that you just automatically slap together and you turn on the faucet and investment money rolls in. Maybe in those really frothy environments, you can start thinking that way, but pitch decks usually take months and months to refine. Your pitch takes months to refine. Investors, especially in the environment right now, are not in a hurry to write those checks, so you may be spending months developing those relationships. So what I do is I develop my pitch deck early and I show what I've done in terms of my unique value proposition, how I'm doing with the customers, my initial traction that way. And I say, I'm not raising money yet, but when I am, I'd love your opinion. I'd love to know who I should talk to. Let me know if this makes sense. And a lot of investors will start to feel this FOMO. They'll think, wait a second, what if I miss the boat? And they'll ask for updates, and that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be updating your investors with inflection points. And that's the reason you want to start your pitch deck early. It is a skill you need to develop. Too many founders burn through all their money, and then they got 3 months runway left, even less, and they say, I need to get a pitch deck, and I need investors to get money in right now. Well, you should have been doing that from the beginning. So don't make that mistake that so many founders do. So in your pitch, I've written down the 10 slides that you're going to be focusing on. Your pitch deck may have more slides, but this is great for a screener introductory deck to get an investor's attention. You're going to be looking at problem, solution, market, how it works, business model, go-to-market, competition, team, traction metrics, and the ask. That's your simple, basic pitch deck. It might be shorter, might be longer, but for an introductory deck to show initial investors, this is fantastic. I've got a lot of resources on my channel, and at startups.com, we have a free course online that'll help you with your pitch deck. I'm not here to break down every pitch deck. I'm letting you know that if you work this canvas and you start moving from the outside in, you will have the ammunition to put these 10 slides together, and that's what you want. Then you're going to make an FFA list. Right away, you're going to go through all your contacts and you're going to be looking through FFA, which stands for Friends, Family, and Associates. You're going to write down every single name of anybody that will look at your startup and you're going to block them out and put them in these buckets. After that, you're going to go through all your contacts and you're going to make an ABC list. Your A list are the people that you have a close relationship with. They know your kids, you know their kids, and you can call them up and say, hey, I need a favor. I need to practice my pitch, or I need you to give me feedback on my pitch deck. Those are the contacts that are in your A list. These are the warm ones. The B list are the ones that you have a professional relationship with. They know of you. They know you maybe a little bit. They're willing to take your email, your LinkedIn message. I have plenty of those. You probably have more of those than your A's. And that's what you want to be focusing on next after your A's, because you're going to get feedback from your A's, and then you're going to contact your B's, and you're going to be more refined, every step that you go. The C's stand for cold contacts. The ones that you would love to invest in your company or get feedback or maybe become an advisor to your company, but they don't know who you are. You are going to be thinking about them, but if you work your A's, a lot of times they'll refer you to B's, and they'll also refer you to C's. And this creates this networking effect where your network becomes your net worth. You see what I'm saying here? You have to start early. Too many founders come to me and they have their pitch deck and I go test it. Go tell me what your contacts say about it. Who should I show it to? And I say your A's. the people who you know who are willing to give you feedback. And if you don't have at least a few A's, 5 or 10 A's in your life, then you should really be rethinking whether you fit in terms of founder. It's something called founder market fit. If you can't get people to give you feedback, and you might say to yourself, well, Ed, I live in a small town and I'm isolated. I don't know anybody. I think that's an excuse. I know many people who live in small towns who've got great networks online. It might come down to the way that you're building relationships. This is a learning point. Every step of this canvas is going to give you feedback as a founder where the gaps are. And if you have a gap that you don't know how to develop a contact list, might be time to start. If your LinkedIn's not up to snuff, work on your profile. Start adding those contacts. Start putting thought leadership articles on your LinkedIn. Start talking about your startup so people actually want to talk to you. Like I said, if you do this right, this will be the list that keeps on giving. I'm always working my ABC list and maintaining those relationships. That's one of the best parts about being with startups.com is my network is absolutely phenomenal right now. I've met investors, partners, I've met potential co-founders, customers, beta testers, people who help me with idea validation, collaborators, service providers. Getting into a community and network could be what you are looking for. Not everybody has the skills and are all extroverted and being loud on social media, but if you do this right, you'll work your way to the right contact. I always say you're only 6 degrees of separation. It's a theory from the best investor that you need. And you might be having some blind luck like I did with my first angel investor. But other times I worked hard to contact the investor that I want to talk to, and eventually I get to them if I've worked my network correctly. So after you have your FFA list going, you're going to practice your pitch. You're going to send it to them, say, tell me if this makes sense. Sometimes I even just send problem, solution, and market size to them. And I say, does this make sense? Just give it to me straight. Here's a black and white pitch deck, nothing fancy, just text. And I go back and forth and I massage it. Meanwhile, I'm developing all the other parts. I'm working my UVP and my ICP, and I'm getting all this data and I'm putting it together into my pitch deck so my startup continues to go. I know many founders that just stop developing their startup and they think, well, I'm not going to work on my startup till I raise money for it. And that is a huge mistake. Investors will see that a mile away. You have to be showing that you can prove exceptional results. You can do exceptional things for very little resources, be relentlessly resourceful and impressive that way. Then you got so much to communicate in your pitch deck. You're going to practice, and every time you work your FFA, you're going to be asking them, who else do you think I should talk to that has an expert opinion like yours? I value your opinion. I want to talk to other people just like you. Who else should I talk to? I know some founders that go really far and they say, give me a list of 10 other people that you think I should talk to if they've gotten a good response. And that's really, really hustling. Now let's move along here. You are then going to repeat and automate the left side of this canvas. Your product UVP, your validation, getting users to love your product, getting them to pay $1. There are going to be things that you're going to do in the beginning that don't scale. Why is this important? Doing things that don't scale means that you're probably doing hand-to-hand combat sales, founder-led sales. You're right in front of your customer, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm never going to reach 1 million customers. I'm never going to reach $1 million. That's okay because you're constantly learning. You are talking to your customers. Do you love the product? Why do you love the product? What don't you love about the product? What product feature would you die without? And then you're going to figure out how to get them to pay you the dollar. You might have to do it hand-to-hand combat. You might have to negotiate sales and talk to people directly. But then eventually, once you figure out what of all that works, you're going to start to automate it. That's where you're going to get in there, and automation is absolutely key. It's one of the best pieces of advice I got from Y Combinator. When I was interviewing down there, I had a manual sales process. I had channels, but people were doing hand-to-hand combat sales. I had to use sales associates, and they said, we don't like that because people don't scale. We need you to figure out how to onboard users directly. And I did that. We reprogrammed it, and we found a different channel. We went through employees, and we got them to love our product and onboard themselves and then share it with their managers. And I started to develop product market fit to the point where we were having 2 or 3 qualified customers come in per day compared to all the work that I was doing in these long sales cycles, to the point where my number one customer saw that and said, we want to buy you. And that's how I exited out of my second startup. So don't get caught up in automating things until they work. Don't get caught up in scale. So many founders go, but Ed, this is never going to scale. And they start spending money on all these fancy doodads and technological automations. You don't need that. Figure out what works first, then slowly start to automate everything on the left side. And guess what? You're going to do the exact same on the right side. You're going to automate, and you're going to figure out how to repeat in an automated way, and that is figuring out how do I refine this ICP. Maybe you're expanding it into the early adopters and the early majority. And then you're going to be creating one user, getting one user at a time, and that'll be 2 users. And next week, that'll be more users, and figuring out how the virality works. Can they refer people a lot easier? Can you give them codes instead of asking them directly? If you're in B2B, if you're not asking your best customers for referrals, then you are missing out on a huge opportunity. I send founders all the time that can't grow. I say, what are your best customers saying? And a lot of B2B founders say, I don't know. There's your big problem right there. So ask them, but then slowly figure out what it takes to get a referral and then automate that. And maybe it's email reminders or making it a lot easier using some technological hack to get them to refer other customers. You're going to keep automating this because that's how you're going to get to scale. Let me repeat this. Investors want to invest in founders that figure out what works and then scale that versus give them a pile of money. An investor's not going to give you a pile of money to figure out what scales if you don't know what's working. They're not going to give you that money just to go and experiment. They want to give you money to pour gasoline on the fire. That's why you're going to tell the investor, hey, this is how we did it, hand-to-hand combat in the beginning, and then we started putting these automations, and look at how we're going up and to the right. Speaking of going up and to the right, that's the last step. It's all about traction, and traction towards profitability. Let me make a comment about this. In the beginning, up to 2021, 2022, hyper growth was the big deal. Investors would tell you, especially institutional ones, listen, I want you to spend 50 cents on every dollar on ads, on scale. We don't care if you're making money. And a lot of hot industries do that. OpenAI made $3.5 billion, but they lost $5 billion. And a lot of investors understand you might have to grow to a critical mass before you start making money. Uber went that route. Amazon was unprofitable for years. Those days are going bye-bye unless you're in one of those really hot industries where you're in it for the long haul and you need that scale to become profitable. Most of the time, investors want to see you on the path towards profitability. That means, guess what? You're going to need a financial model. You're going to have to know your numbers, your unit economics, cost of acquisition for every customer, and that's the reason you're tracking all those metrics. But if you can't point them towards a path to profitability where you become default alive, that means that the money coming in is the same as the money going out, where you're ramen profitable, you're profitable enough just to eat ramen noodles. Investors love hearing that story, and that is becoming more and more of a condition for investors to be interested in your startup. I know a founder that was profitable in month 3 and bootstrapped all the way. He has a VC or a private equity company calling him every single week. He doesn't have to go out and look for investors. Investors are pitching him the whole time. Now he has 40 million users, and it was an amazing startup. This is a really smart founder and a really smart team, and a lot of luck went his way, but it gives you an idea when you can talk about profitability, how much more investors are going to be interested in your startup. Now, what type of traction are you looking for? Well, I'm just going to put it out there. Ideally, you pick one meaningful metric and you're driving that 10% week over week, and you're showing a pattern, maybe 3 months, 6 months of traction is even better. That's one of the first startups that I had. I had 60% traction. That was revenue. I was growing 60% week over week. Now, was it a lot of revenue? No, it wasn't. It started off with only a few $100s, but it was constantly growing. But I had enough of a track record where you could extrapolate and say, all right, we figured out a few things, and investors got really interested. Y Combinator got really interested. Y Combinator is where I learned to put a little sticky note on my computer that said 10% week over week. And all I did was get obsessed with driving that metric. And that's what you need to do. Because if you grow 10% week over week, believe me, investors are going to be interested. You just have to start off saying, this is my unique value proposition, and we're growing 10% week over week. Trust me, your conversation with investors will be completely different. Doesn't necessarily mean revenue. Revenue is definitely highly recommended, but it could be just user acquisition or interactions or transactions on your platform. That's going to definitely move the needle. So if you follow this blue column all the way down, you start off with what investors am I talking to at what stage? So you got the right investor you're talking to, and you give them the pitch, and you end off with traction, and you show them that you are growing and that you are on the path towards profitability. You show them those key metrics. Raising money is going to be that much easier. Now let's take a look at this legend here. Well, you see the different colors there? Well, in my next video, I'm going to break down and explain to you all the different stages and why you are going to be working through things such as problem solution fit, founder market fit, product market fit, what all that means and how you use that canvas. And eventually you're going to use this tool to get you to founder investor fit. Well, let me give you a little preview. How's that? Okay. Later on, I'm going to show you this color scale that you can use to figure out what stage you are, which is going to help you develop yourself as a founder. Right now, I'm just testing this canvas. you can see that I put on an MVP. I've got lots of plans for it, but I think this is going to work because I know the problems that I want to solve. I'm going to be using this canvas myself, and I'll come out with other videos to give you lots of examples, and I'll get other founders to use it as well. And I'm going to show you how we are raising money for founders, successfully raising for founders. And the goal is to get you to your first 100K if you use this properly. What do you think? I'd love your feedback. Like I said, while you're here, like, comment, subscribe, but I'd love to hear your feedback, and I will continue to bring out materials like this. If you're interested in working on this and getting direct coaching from me, join startups.com and show me that you are working on this. I've got a really special offer in the works, so let me know. If you got a pitch deck, you got an idea, just leave a comment. Happy to interact with you and tell you how you can get more involved with me at startups.com. I'm partnering with them as a chief strategy officer. We got so much valuable stuff there on the website that I think you're going to get so much value. Even if you never sign up, just go and check out startups.com. It's not going to hurt you at all. That's it for me. Like I said, hope this is helpful, and I will see you in the next video.